So hi, everybody, and welcome to a very special milestone episode. In fact, episode number 200 of Level Up, 60 minutes, of course, of live Q&A, where your questions really do drive the show. And we've got some celebration balloons as well. So how about that for opening the show in a really positive way? Today, I'm going to invite you, please, to do something for us and also something for yourselves. If you're watching on YouTube, and give this video a like and do subscribe to the channel. At least consider doing that. It's free. And of course, it helps others to find our content. And for yourselves, joining our community using the link, which is going to be shown on the screen, will send you a personalized update every week of what's coming up, and so that you can plan your attendance and do all of that good stuff. Adriana today is over in the social chat. So please do introduce yourself to her and the team and let them know your name and, of course, the city from where you're joining in the world. And they will post links so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered. And, of course, for you to be able to add your own. Now, if your question's selected, then your name, quite rightly, will appear in the credits at the end of the show. So do get those questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Today's episode is all about project management. It is, of course, a highly rewarding career, not just in monetary terms, but also in personal satisfaction terms. And it adds value to organizations all over the world in different industries and so on. But how do you break into that role? And once you're in there, how do you continue to build that professional credibility and experience? Helping us figure all of that out today is our panel of experts. So let's jump in and meet them all. Bina Champaneria is an associate project management trainer whose work spans a wide spectrum of project methods and approaches. She spent time both in industry and in academia, working with universities. Bina is able to draw, I think, from a deep experience of what really works in practice, as well as what might appear to work in theory. So welcome to the Level Up panel, Bina. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. It's really nice to be here with some very experienced panelists. And I've been watching this show for quite a long time, so it's really nice to be on the other side, actually. So I'm excited to be here on the 200th episode as well. Thank you.
Well, indeed, you've picked your moment to join, so congratulations and thank you very much for volunteering. It's really, really brilliant, to have you on board, and thank you for your contribution in the social chat as well. It's a big part, as you know, of how we work together on Level Up. So thank you for that. Stephan Brendel rejoins the panel again today. He is, of course, APMG's regional lead for Europe and Latin America, and he splits his time between Germany and the Netherlands. He works closely with our key partners to really champion and live out the business relationship management skills that are so important for us all to grow and develop. So welcome back, Stephan. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick, and thanks for the invitation to episode 200. I'm really feeling pleased contributing to this show. And as you know, as most panelists know, I've been watching this, I've been hosting this, I'm contributing to this. I really love this show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Stephan. It's an absolute pleasure. Richard Campbell rejoins today. It's becoming a familiar face, I think, for folks. He's the director, of course, and product engagement lead over at the Agile Business Consortium, where he really focuses on products that help people adopt a greater degree of business agility. Widely accepted, of course, amongst all of those as a world-class certification, the Agile project management qualifications are at the heart of Agile transformations, lots of different countries. So welcome back to the panel, Richard. Great to see you today.
Thanks, Nick. Lovely to be here. So for those of you not familiar so much with the Agile Business Consortium in the context of project management, my focus is very much about those projects where you start to deal with the volatility, the uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that is increasing the case in our project environments today. And this is the space that we're looking to address. How can we help project managers who are looking at the world where that is a dominant part of the nature of the work that they are undertaking? So I look forward to this chat. Lovely to be here on the 200th version as well. So back to you, Nick.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Jaap joins us next, or rejoins us rather. Jaap van der Deijl is, of course, the Managing Director of TPG Academy over in the Netherlands, and he's been working with APMG, I think, pretty much since the beginning, 30 years ago. So in addition to delivering projects himself as a project management professional, Jaap also has a passion, of course, for coaching and developing other people. He's also authored the popular Working in Small Projects, or WISP method, which is a brilliant way into project management. So really great to have you back on the panel, Jaap.
Hi, Nick. Thank you very much for the invitation, and also to join after 30 years events from APMG, organized by APMG. It is great, the 30 years. It is as if we started yesterday somewhere in Munich together with Richard. It is great, and indeed it is nice also to focus on, apart from the large streams like IPMA, PMI, and Agile PM, to do something for project managers to be. And that's why I invest a lot of time in WISP, creating opportunities for people who want to become a project manager without sometimes knowing what they really want to do, what they will become. So it's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. That's great. Thank you, Jaap. Adrian Pyne rejoins today. He is the Director of Consulting for Pyne Consulting, but also he's an author, of course, of the book Agile Beyond IT, where he champions the adoption of agility across organisations. Thank you, Adrian, for holding the book up. That's really grand. With a background in both the private and the public sectors, I think you're well positioned to be able to help colleagues out who are joining us online, and I can see lots of people who are. He invests, of course, in coaching and upskilling other people. So welcome back to Level Up, Adrian.
Thank you very much indeed. I've been delighted and honoured to be on a number of panels in the past year, but this one's a special privilege, and not least because just look at the other panel members. My goodness, we've got a group of amazing, capable, and experienced people today.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you very much indeed. And completing our panel team today is Etienne Shardlow. He is the CEO at Symphonize Consulting, where he and his team together deliver a range of coaching and training with passion and commitment to every learner. He's a regular contributor, of course, from the very beginning of Level Up. I think, not sure if you were on episode 1, but it was certainly in the single digits, Etienne. And he's really helped us grow the series and develop it and, improve the production value. So welcome back to Etienne. I'm delighted to see you today.
It's really an honor to be here as part of Level Up, episode 200. And I was just thinking back, 30 years of APMG as well. I think my first interaction with APMG was probably 15 years ago when I got my first APMG. So I've been part of the family for about half of that time. It really is an honor to be here for Level Up, episode 200. So looking forward to sharing some of my project management experience with everyone today.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. Now, completing our on-screen team today, we need a question master, and today that's going to be Charlotte Miller. She's joining us from the Thames Valley here in the UK. She's, of course, a business development manager in the UK with APMG and also covers Ireland. Charlotte, great to have you back on the panel, and you were definitely in episode 1, I remember that, and now here you are in episode 200.
I think I was in episode before Level Up 200 as well, because of the rehearsals and preparations that you, Nigel, and I did in preparing for our first live broadcast. But it's such an honour to be here on this panel with our new panelist, Bina, and such esteemed colleagues on the rest of the panel. Looking forward to it.
I completely agree. So it's going to be a fun one today, everybody. I can see lots of folks joining in the chat. So we're going to do a big shout out to the folks on the social team in a few minutes' time. Please do tell us the city from where you are joining as well. That really helps us get a sense of where you are in the world. All right, very good. So, Charlotte, I think we should jump in and have our first question for the panel, if we may.
Thanks, Nick. Our first question is from Adrian, one of our panelists. What are the hallmarks of today's project manager?
All right. The hallmarks of today's project manager. Thank you very much indeed. Stephan, why don't you start us off on this and then we'll go to Bina.
Thanks, Nick. I surely can. And there are lots of hallmarks that project managers have, but I would like to give only three for the moment. One is probably it's about leadership. To have leadership capabilities, to lead, because it's a team. You have to lead a team as a project manager. Number two is communication. Nothing works without communication. And number three is very often because of the stakeholders' demands that there has to be time management. So you have to be able to deliver on time or maybe make little wonders happen. And I would leave other hallmarks to my other fellow panelists.
It's certainly true, isn't it? It's quite remarkable how really super busy people seem to manage to always find a little moment, to help something along. And that all comes down to that time management skill. Completely agree with that. Thank you so much, Stephan. Great answer. Bina, your thoughts on this, and then we'll go to Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Stephan. There's some really good points raised. And my emphasis is really on people. You have to be a people person. You can't be the sort of person that just wants to work on their own. So you have to be a good communicator. You have to be a good team player. You have to be a people person because you don't know all the answers. So you have to be prepared to work with the team, encourage the team, motivate the team. But also, you have to understand how people communicate as well. So very much the focus is on communication and being a people person, team player.
Great advice. No one's going to follow you. You're going to kind of turn around and imagine that everybody's following you, and you'll just see tumbleweed if you don't have those people skills. Completely agree with that. Thank you so much, Bina. Richard, your thoughts on this, please, and then we'll go to Adrian.
This is going to be a tricky one again because so many of the points Stephan and Bina have already brought up was what sprung to mind. But I go back to Adrian's question, the key word hallmarks, and I was thinking, right, okay, a hallmark that would stand out for me in modern times would be a recognition that the project manager is an expert in nothing. The hallmark is they are very good at listening. So it goes again, this communicator idea. It's about using your ears, and listening a great deal, trusting the people around you, or maybe equally well, putting the right people around you who you can trust and building up that collaborative environment where you can rely on those people who are around you. So those are the sorts of people skills, again, picking up very much what Bina's already said here. That's what I would say, bang on the money.
Yeah, fantastic. Couldn't agree more. Assemble a really good team, have an empathy for what they're doing, but it's a good thing not to be the expert, not to try and do their roles for them. Otherwise, all kinds of problems sort of arise from that. Thank you so much indeed. Adrian, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Jaap.
Well, firstly, everything that's been said so far by the other sort of panelists, I think where I'll go on this one is I want to focus on flexibility and adaptability. And I think particularly as people build a career and their capability is in project management, from, shall we say, project manager to leader to professional, which is kind of how I envisage a sort of a progress. They get ever more flexible and ever more adaptable, dare I say it, ever more agile.
Yeah, I think you dare do say it. I think you dare do say it, okay, because it's such an important part of the way in which projects are now delivered. We do need to dare to be more agile in it, and not simply report on the milestone that we're on because that's where we are and the process says that's what we're going to do next. We need to be thinking people. We need to be able to evolve, the project delivery in alignment with the situations that are being faced by the organisation. So completely agree with that. Thank you, Adrian. Jaap, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Etienne.
Okay. Yes, what I'd like to add is following. You must be able to delegate and must be willing to delegate to the team. You have to be a very strong team builder. also to help your team to be able to do their tasks. And you must be willing to deal with changes. You have to accept that the environment, the context of the project is changing, especially nowadays, I think. So, yeah, you have to be flexible. And furthermore, you have to break with the past. I myself, I was a technician, a specialist. When I became a project manager, I had to manage a project and not focus on what I was good in. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And Etienne, final thoughts?
Yeah, very difficult to come in here last. Everyone's kind of covered everything. But Stephan started off chatting about leadership. And for me, that was kind of my hallmark. And then I thought, well, leadership is part of it. But we're also leaders of change as project managers. And I think we mustn't forget the kind of people part of not just our project team that we're leading, but also the fact that we're leading changes in our customer organizations or in the organizations that we're working in. And I think we need to be leaders of change. I think that is something that we can maybe add to this list of hallmarks.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a very important part. So there's some fantastic answers there. And what a brilliant question to start us off. So thank you, Adrian, for the question. And also panel for your great thoughts on that. Let's jump over to social. And it's very active today. Actually, goodness me, we've got a big audience who are online. Boleslaw joins us. And thank you so much for your warm congratulations. We really appreciate it. And unfortunately, it's a little damp. Mildly damp over there in Poland. And Keith joins us from the wonderful city of Dublin over in Ireland. And thank you for the emoticons on the end or whatever they're called. We really like those. They're great. David joins us from Wales, actually, in the UK, from Cardiff. Fantastic city, of course, and been there many, many times. And Julian is also joining from Jobo, from Johannesburg in South Africa. And thank you very much indeed, Julian, for being part of our 200th audience, actually, today. We really do appreciate it. Let's crack on, if we can, please, Charlotte, and we'll take our next question for the panel.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from one of our Level Up friends, Ricardo Santos. Ricardo asks, it's just disappeared. I'm so sorry. Two texts. Ricardo asks, can I become a good project manager without formal training?
All right. So is it possible, Ricardo, and thank you, by the way, for submitting the question, can I become a good project manager without formal training? If I may, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Etienne, I'm going to come to you first, if I can, and then Bina will come to you next.
Right. As someone who runs a training organization, my answer will obviously be very biased in favor of training. And I do think formal training helps a lot. Right. But I think you can learn an awful lot from experience as well. And I always believe that you need that combination of understanding the theory and learning from other people's mistakes combined with learning from your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an activity that is a bit like the old-fashioned phrase, it's hard to learn to juggle from a book. You need to get in there and do it and take part in it and, learn on the job, if you like. So it definitely goes hand in hand for sure. Bina, your thoughts? Then we'll go to Richard.
Yeah, I think I can echo what Etienne said, because I deliver training in project management as well. So I can see the value that these things, formal training gives. But often people have not worked on projects or have much experience. So what I ask them to do is relate it to something that you've done before, even if you haven't managed projects formally. Can you relate it to a personal project, for example? Because if you understand what a project is, what the background is, the context, then the formal training helps to sort of add a bit more formality, and confirm what you've been doing. But I guess the question also is, what do you mean by a good project manager? What is a good project manager? That's another question, I guess. Is it somebody that finishes on time? delivers what's expected, manages communication. So I think there's kind of two things there, really, in this question.
And I think that you're so right, Bina. And Ricardo is very, very much a thinking person. I think he's phrased a very elegant question with lots of different layers to it and dimensions to it. Thank you so much indeed. Really appreciate that. Richard, your thoughts? Then we'll go to Stephan.
Yes, the flavour that I was picking out from this is the idea of what constitutes good, as in successful. And in reality, that means being recognized by employers as someone who they want to bring in because you make results happen. You can bring about project success, whatever project success means in the context that you're in. And how would an employer make that assessment? And you've got to say they've got to find somewhere measuring your actual competence. So it's one thing to go on formal training and know it inside out. But again, picking up on this idea of you've got to then reflect on that and say, okay, I've learned this. How do I now apply this to the project? And then say, well, what did I actually do? What was the thing I have learned so that I'm now actually more competent at doing this when I get a similar thing that I face next time? And employers increasingly will recognize this relationship between learning, applying, reflecting, and then really, really internalizing that as a competence to be better and better at what you do as a project manager.
Indeed. And those experiences, lived experiences, change us, and the education element changes us. And it's all about that transformation of ourselves so that next time we are presented with those issues and challenges and so on, we have that competence and capability. It's been improved in some fashion. It's different. We're different people than we were before. Excellent. Thank you so much indeed. Stephan, and then Jaap.
Ricardo, if you revert the question, can I become a project manager with formal training, a good project manager? I think there's some merit to this. We heard about it earlier, that there are skills you probably won't receive through a formal training, like people skills, leadership, those kind of things. I know for myself, when the first time I made a project, and it was a huge project, a huge infrastructure project, I had no clue about any kind of formal training. But I had some intuition, and I knew how important it was to communicate, and to deal with people. My formal training happened later on. Have I been a good project manager? Probably not in the very beginning, but it evolved. It became good in terms of, I think it's what Richard said, what's good is the credibility, the recognition, and not that you know exactly which configuration item you have to do now or later on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Stephan. Jaap, final thoughts?
Yes, I agree with the previous speakers, the panelists. Most of us, or a lot of us, became project managers without formal trainer. As Stephan also said, very successful, very good. I don't know, you have to ask to my boss, but I'm not sure if he's still alive. The thing is, we learn by doing. At least it is what we do. But sometimes you need formal training if you are asked to use a certain methodology, or you have to study the book. So yes, you can become a good, successful project manager without formal training. It may take some more time. Worldwide, we spend about $50 billion a year on projects. And still 35% or more of the projects are not successful. So, we are learning, but it costs a lot of money. And are we good? It is up to the customer.
Thank you so much. Well done. We got there in the end, did we? Who says anything is good, really? It's the consumer of the service being delivered. So from that perspective, at least, I think we've all hinted at it, but thank you, Jaap, for mentioning it explicitly, that we cannot be the measure of ourselves. We need to allow others to be able to do that. Adrian, what are your thoughts on this? Can I become a good project manager without formal training? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's two quick things I'd like to mention. First of all, it's a sort of a pseudo equation that I've mentioned in some previous sessions, and I've got this thing that someone's capability, and there's been a lot of measure about comments about evolving your capability over time, and so I think that capability is, if you like, a combination of innate skills that you're kind of born with, as it were. So talent plus knowledge, which you might gain through training, reading around the subject, etc., plus experience, plus judgment. So training or the acquisition of knowledge, formally or informally, I think is a key part of the building of that capability. And then, of course, there's the second point I'm going to raise is there's different kinds of capability, and I think it's important to recognize, and this is just not being fashionable or anything, that there's a great deal of benefit from the recognition of the diversity, and I'm going to say diversity with a small d here, of different people from different backgrounds, from different ethnicities, from different cultures, and even different sexual orientations people bring. So learning about the importance of the value that can be gained from very diverse teams and very diverse cultures, I think, is important. And as it happens, the training consultancy company Provec, that I do in collaboration with over business agility, is holding a diversity and inclusion in project management webinar next Wednesday afternoon UK time, and I think there may be a link. It is. It's up on the screen for anyone that's interested.
Thank you so much indeed. And there's some very serious review going on at the moment into UK government's response in the early COVID-19 pandemic period. And one of the commentaries in that has been that too many of the people who were in the inner circle thought alike, were alike, acted alike, and there was a lack of diverse thinking. There was a lack of a broader range of people whose actually, if their opinions had been, the inference being, if their opinions had been available, perhaps more informed or broader decisions may have been made. So a great shout out there, and highly relevant, I think, for considering your project team and the challenges that you're being faced with. How representative is it? And, can you reach out and get some more an inclusive arrangement where you have a broader set of talents and backgrounds and cultures represented? So excellent. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Ricardo, great question. My friend, if you ever want a job as an examiner writing questions for APMG, then just put your hand up, because I think that's a lovely one. And the "it depends" answer is never available on a multiple choice, is it? Never mind. There we go. Let's on, Charlotte, if we can. Oh, by the way, if you're online and you're thinking, I'd like to ask these folks something, just type your question into the chat and we'll get it in and we'll feature it on the show. But you need to be super quick, because time is ticking. Charlotte, can we have our next question, please?
Hey, Nick. And we've just had a question added, and it's very similar to your question that I was going to ask next. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to bring it on screen and ask it. The question is, there's an ever-growing number of project management certifications on the market. In your opinion, what 3 certificates are most valuable to further project management career, and why?
All right, excellent question, Boleslaw. It's very similar to actually one that I put in, cheeky one that I put in earlier for the panel to consider. So if I may, on this occasion, I'm going to start with Adrian and then come to Richard.
Yeah, I may be slightly controversial here. In one respect, it almost doesn't matter what certification you do. If you want to learn the tools and techniques that project managers and project people use, then pretty well any of the certifications will provide that really good grounding in whether it's the mechanistic stuff from planning and scheduling to risk management and change control, through to the more people aspects of building teams, leadership, stakeholder management and communications planning. All of those, pretty much any of the certifications will give you a good grounding. But some certifications do have more of a focus. It's sometimes said that something like Prince 2 is said to be a bit more sort of process oriented, but as opposed to PMI scope slant or APM body of knowledge based approach. And I'll leave it to others to put into there. And certainly, I know Richard's going to talk about some of the huge advantages in the Agile Business Consortium's products, which I've got a lot of time for. So I think over to Richard.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Richard. What are your thoughts? And then we'll go to Etienne.
Well, I'd better talk about Agile project management, hadn't I, really? I think under the circumstances, it would be wrong to not bring that up as a topic, given that Adrian set it up for me to talk about. So, yes. So Agile project management has been widely adopted by projects throughout the world. And really it's that recognition that so many of the projects, the nature of the problems that are being faced are, you don't know all the answers up front. It's you're going into the project with a great deal of uncertainty, and it's beholden on the project manager to be able to cope with that uncertainty and learn as you go. And those sorts of principles of learning and then adapting the project dynamically to say, what's the next thing we need to do that is most valuable, and continuously asking that question from the perspective of the customers that you are serving. That's the heart of the certification that would be, I'd say, is the Agile project management one of them that I'd say is right at the top there. But the recent development that I would also like to highlight is Agile project management for Scrum. And this is a recognition that a huge number of delivery teams are actually using Scrum as their method of delivery. And Agile PM, Agile project management for Scrum, uses the same language and allows for those teams that are used to working in that Scrum manner, but have the project itself focused around that sort of terminology and that sort of process. So that's why I think those two probably are the ones I'd be advocating.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. That's great. Thanks, Richard. Etienne, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Jaap.
Yeah, I agree that it is difficult because there are so many options. There are some qualifications that have been around for a very long time, Prince, PMBOK, and they teach a whole range of different things, methods and techniques and tools for doing all the bits and pieces. And they're great. But I also find that these days you need to often supplement those with something that helps you become more nimble, more adaptable. And so Agile is kind of the way we tend to go. And I really enjoy Scrum, but I personally don't really like Scrum as a project management tool. I think of Scrum more as product development. And I use Scrum within projects, but I like something else, to kind of support Scrum. Maybe that's just my governance background. Maybe I'm more of a control freak or something. But I need something more than just Scrum, and so I like to actually use Agile PM together with the Scrum guidance, and I always like bringing those together because I believe that we need to learn how to be more responsive. And so a lot of those certificates like Prince 2 and PMBOK, which are very well respected and are certainly going to get your CV looked at, need something extra. And that is this ability to adapt. And so that's where things like Scrum and Agile PM and methodologies like this kind of step in.
I agree with that. And I think it's quite fascinating, really, isn't it? Because the whole point about taking a certification is that we crystallize our aptitude to do something into a format that's portable and recognized, and other people can say, yeah, okay, this person studied and they understand, whatever it happens to be. But in a way, it ceases to differentiate you in the market if everybody else also has that. you get to the situation where you're thinking to yourself, well, hang on a minute, am I 1 in a million or am I 1 in 10 million? Am I actually, bigger than that even? So you need to continually think about what is the market looking for and how can it add value to you and what kind of career really path are you looking for. So thank you, Etienne. That's really super helpful. Jaap, let's hear from you if we can, please, and then we'll go to Bina.
Okay, fine. The advice of what certification you need depends also where you are in your career path. If you are starting from fresh, let's say a PMI certification is not even possible. I think you need a lot of experience before you can sit the exam. So it is also, what do we need to implement or to manage a project successfully? And there are a lot of standards and covering everything a senior project manager needs for very complex projects. But is that what you need today to manage your projects? And if you are if you want to become a project manager, it can be overwhelming. I know from experience, and did do a lot of training, that people say, it is nice, but I don't understand 50 or more % of the topics which are addressed. I don't understand them. So what's the value to do a training if you can't use it the next day you leave? So that's, for instance, why we developed WISP. We said, okay, let's keep it simple, understandable. Don't use the project management buzzwords, but speak the language of yourself and the customer, because it's all about communication. And it's not, why do I have to fill in this template, or why do I have to use this terminology? Yeah. Focus on the project. Absolutely. And not on the standards. Yeah.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And we all have this opportunity, outside of work as well, to build up our experience volunteering, working with NGOs, charitable organisations, sports clubs, hobbies and so on. Do that, and it's very much worthwhile reading. We'll try and get a link to the WISP book if we can, and some guidance into the chat a bit later on. Bina, final thoughts on this one, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, just going back to what Jaap said, if you learn something, if you don't use it, then you're not going to retain it. You're not going to get the value. And regarding certifications, if I talk about the two that I predominantly teach, which is Agile PM, that Richard was talking about, and Prince 2, they are very different approaches. But I think what happens is an organization will decide which approach they want to use on their projects, and then they'll send their staff on the training. So an organization adopts an approach. So if you work for an organization, then you get that training. That approach then has to be tailored. So the key is tailoring it into the organization. So regardless of what certificate is chosen, the key is really tailoring it for the circumstances, the situation, the environment that you're going to deliver the projects in, and then gradually that gets embedded. So you may not have a choice in which certification, depends on which certification your organization wishes to choose. But the key is, okay, you take a certification, but it's the tailoring that's going to be important. That's where your experience and your skills come in, actually. So it's still worth doing a certification. Sorry.
No. I was heartfully agreeing with you there, Bina. I completely agree with that. The whole point that you were hired was that you were going to bring something different to the organisation. And yes, you're quite right. Large employers will tend to say, well, we are, for us, we always teach everybody this at foundation level so that everybody's got the same lexicon, everybody understands the same terms. A lot of our templates are based on whatever method is first in mind. But also at the same time, the C-suite are crying out for innovation, okay? And not necessarily revolutionary change, but they're looking within the framework of governance for people to add value, bring something of yourself. And that tailoring that Bina was speaking of and that the other panelists have spoken of previously is so important. It really does depend on the situation that you are faced with, how you actually approach that project. And that's the difference between good and great. And you know what? You can be amazing by actually saying, we probably don't need step 17 23, and we can rule out steps 54 to 98. Is that irrelevant this time? They are irrelevant. So we're going to tailor our approach, and this is what we're going to do. And that's how you add value to your organization, not by slavishly following, an endless checklist of stuff. So very much worthwhile. And there's a little bit more on that, actually, about the application of that coming up soon in a practice framework event that we'll see if we can dig out a reference for, as well as the actual framework that's being shown online now. So very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. What a brilliant question. So thank you very much for that one. And also for the answers to get everybody thinking and everybody really working together. And I can see lots of commentary in the social chat as well, all from all around the world, of different people, feeding back, making suggestions and so on. So thank you so much, Boleslaw. Brilliant question, my friend, and hope to see you here actually on the panel, sitting alongside Bina and her colleagues in the near future. Let's have a quick look. Asma is joining us from Tunisia. It's quite interesting. How very English of you, Asma. Thank you so much indeed. It's fantastic for you to join us. I'm just having a little bit of fun now because the English always understate things, so that's fabulous. Robert, a regular panelist, of course, joining from Chicago. And he's very active in the chat today, actually. So that's great to see. Welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for supporting our 200th episode. And Manifa Henry joined us as well from upper Midwest US, from Detroit in Michigan. Lovely to have you. I hope the weather is kind to you at the moment in Detroit. Maybe it's a little too early for snow, but it's still heading towards the end of fall there. And Dr. Harabi joins us from Tunisia as well. So Tunisia well represented actually today, isn't it? Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, everybody online. Let's move on if we can, as time is against us. Let's take our next question to the panel, please, Charlotte.
Thanks, Nick. Next question from Steve Fleming. Why is agility important to project managers?
All right. Why is agility important? Stephan, why don't you start us off, please?
Yeah. Well, agility is something that actually just has become a term, but everybody who has been educated as the project manager being the local hero, where the water is dividing when he enters the room and all that kind of scenarios, actually should have been there before. Agility addresses all the important skills and the hallmarks that we have spoken before. If it's collaboration, if it's talking to people, one group we haven't touched on yet is stakeholders. Agility addresses that a lot, to talk to stakeholders. And in some cultures, it's difficult where stakeholders say, you come back when the project is ready. I don't want to see you before that. These exist, we know that, but stakeholder engagement is part of that agile approach. So agile is something that is, I think, rather formulated, but has skills and attributes that probably have been there even before in several areas. I don't know what the other panelists think about it.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Adrian, your thoughts, then we'll go to Bina.
Right. Oh, goodness me. Got 3 hours. Right. So first, my first take on this is I always turn things around slightly. I've been fortunate enough to have to, if you like, peer review several hundred project managers, different levels, particularly highly experienced ones. And one thing I got out of that experience is that all true project professionals exhibit characteristics of agility. They are agile to their boots. So if you turn that one around, agility is potentially a model for developing great project management professionalism. And it's one of the reasons I wrote the book, which brings my second quick point, is that I saw so much out there, especially around LinkedIn articles, that was getting agile project management unbelievably badly, stupidly, expensively wrong, that I ended up just having to write a book to say, no, Scrum isn't project management and lots of other things. And project management isn't defined by a life cycle, iterative or otherwise, because project management is a whole load of things, as the panel have said in their various other answers this afternoon. Sorry, I'm getting a bit excited, but I'm pretty passionate about this. And that's kind of why I ended up writing the book, to say, look, this is what agility looks like when applied to the whole of project management, and potentially for any project in any sector, so that to help people out, show what it is. But yeah, I think it's a great model for potentially developing really fantastic project professionals.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Bina, your thoughts quickly, and then we'll move to Etienne.
Yeah, following on from Adrian's enthusiasm and great points about agility. I mean, agility is quite a big word. You've got agility of an organization, that they have to work in an agile way, if you like, and then you've got agility in a project. So without going into too much theory, an agile project means that you move fast, you don't, you iterate, you build a good product, you prioritize, and you're trying to get something out to the business as quickly as possible. And it's a different kind of mindset, it's a different way of working, but also there's a lot of emphasis on behavior, how the team behaves, how they're self-managing. So there's a whole area about how so a project manager needs to understand, if you've got an agile project, what does that mean? You've got to take all these other factors into account. And of course, the organization also has to have agility to support the project as well.
Completely agree with that. And that organizational agility aids the project manager in the delivery of the project for sure. Thank you so much. Etienne, briefly, your thoughts, and then we'll go to you.
Well, I can give you the 10-hour answer. I can give you the one-word answer. So I'm going to go with the one-word answer and go, why is agility important to project managers? And the answer is surprise. Surprise throws projects off, and we need to be able to adapt quickly, and agility is exactly that. So how do we respond when things take us by surprise? That's what agility gives us.
Fantastic. I love that. I'm going to make a note of that, actually, around surprise and agility and our ability to adapt, in those circumstances. Thank you, Etienne, so much. Jaap, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Richard.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And like what Etienne just said, the surprises you are encountering as a project manager or a project team also have to deal with the stakeholders. And I think it's very important to be aware that stakeholders are not always knowing what they really want and what they are really asking. So, but as far as I know, when we started with project manager using the famous waterfall model, we also already worked sometimes in an agile way of working. It is not very new, but I'd say it is being more flexible without being, how do you call it, improvising. You can work agile, but you have to avoid that you start to improvise on the basis that we don't know the answer. So let's do a sprint and see where we end up in 2 weeks from now. So we still are talking about managing projects.
Thank you very much. I'm yet to find a project management book or method that has winging it in the lexicon of terms that you need to be able to adopt, and yet you see it happening in front of you time after time after time. Richard, final thoughts on this, then we're going to move on.
Yeah, some brilliant answers that have come in from the other panelists. So I was racking my brain again for something which they hadn't already mentioned. And I'd come into it from the perspective that for the project manager himself to enjoy the project and be successful in the project, the whole team needs to be part of a successful and want to be part of that success. So what agility also brings is the emotional intelligence aspects of requiring each person to be on their A game, really thinking and understanding value. And agility does a great deal towards effectively bringing out the leader in everyone. And the project manager's role is to facilitate that and I think bring about agility in that way. That's the aspect I'd be focusing on.
Fantastic. And in the week that celebrates the International Project Management Day, then what a great way to think about it. This is the way for project managers to enjoy the work, and not see it all of the time as the person who's huddled over their laptop, working later than everybody else. So thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it, panel. Charlotte, let's move on. If we can, time is against us. We're going to have to be super quick, and we'll try and fit in one or two more questions.
Thanks, Nick. This is a live question from one person, but 3 other people have also asked this question in today's chat. So this is a question from several viewers. The question is, can an algorithm ever replace project management in the future, in your opinion?
Okay, all right. What a great question, Katarzyna. So thank you for asking it. Etienne, are you real or are you an avatar?
Unfortunately, I'm real. So this is actually a fascinating question, and it's really interesting because in all of the panels we've had over 200 episodes, although I haven't been on all 200 episodes, I've been on many. This is the first time we've had a question like this, and I think it's a very interesting question. I do believe that artificial intelligence and algorithms and machine learning are going to be able to do incredible things. Right now, I don't think it's possible. I'm not going to say it won't ever be. I think it will be, but not for a while to come.
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to have to be quick, panel. Stephan and then Richard.
Yeah, make it very short. No, because you can use the algorithm to improve all the standard routine stuff, and it's a good advice to do that. So you concentrate as a project manager on the people, skills, on empathy, and all these things that are important. Leave the routine to the algorithm. An old hippie advice, I would
say. Thank you very much indeed. Richard, your thoughts, and then
Well, I would never say never. Technology is jumping ahead so quickly. So I think it is possible at some stage in the future. I'm just saying, not in my lifetime, I don't think. I think that the role of algorithms and artificial intelligence and machine learning to support better decision-making is going to grow phenomenally from where it is today. But I can't see in my lifetime it completely removing this idea of being a project manager, except for maybe the simplest forms of highly predictable, mechanized project management.
Thank you very much indeed. Jaap, your thoughts, and then Bina?
Yes, I think as long as we don't have cars which drive themselves without the driver behind the driver's seat, in the driver's seat, this will not be possible for project managers. If you can't have a car driving with a few algorithms without having a collision or whatever, project managers is a bit more complicated than driving a car, I think. But I can't see the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Bina and then Adrian.
Well, I would be concerned about what happens to emotional intelligence when we're dealing with people and diversity and inclusion. How is that going to be handled if we don't have a person as a project manager? That's it.
Yeah, and absolutely right to flag that. Thank you, Bina. And finally, Adrian on this one.
Again, agree with everything that other panelists have said. I'll take a slightly different tack. I think if we're going to talk about AI, in the future, it may well have these capabilities. I think we need to be thinking very seriously during the evolution of this technology, what we're going to allow it to do and what we're going to not allow it to do. And that's extremely important.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it brings us back to what adds value. What is the project manager doing? And if you're spending your life reporting and that reporting is not adding value, then that's something to consider automating in some fashion or another. But if you're spending your life adding value, coaching, encouraging, making a difference, then it's hard to see how even some of at the rate of development, it's hard to see how an algorithm is going to be able to add the kind of value that you add. So here's the question for all of us as professionals. What is the value that we're bringing? Is it that we do reporting on time and in a fashion and, to the moment and so on? Or are we adding value above that? Yes, of course, we need to do that. There's governance and we need to do it. But are we actually bringing additional value as well to our organisation? Something to consider perhaps. Charlotte, I think we've got time. We might only take one or two answers, but we've got time for one last question, if we can.
Live question from Ricardo. How relevant to becoming a project manager is identifying a good coach and mentor?
All right, I'm just going to take a couple of answers on this one. How relevant is it to have a good coach or a mentor in your journey to become a project manager? Etienne.
I think a good coach or a good mentor can help you in any journey, any career path. Project management, as we said earlier, you can learn a lot from the theory and you can learn a lot from reading, but learning hands-on is a great way to learn. And if you can learn hands-on with a person who's been there, done it, even better. So yes, I think very important.
Thank you very much indeed. And Adrian?
That actually, in developing yourself actually as a project professional, then mentoring and coaching people in your team and around you, and also working with peers, learning from them and giving lessons to them is equally important. It's I think it's an agile way of working. It's continuous learning for yourself and for those around you.
Completely agree. Thank you very much indeed. What a great question, Ricardo. Thank you. And also, thank you to the panel for some fabulous answers. On that coaching point, don't forget, audience, if you'd like to reach out to any of the panel, you can find their LinkedIn bio. It's on the clickable link from within the event page on apmginternational.com. All right. So you're most welcome to professionally connect with all of us. We don't really like you selling us things, so don't do it with that in mind. But if you want to coach, mentor, if you want to buddy up with any of the panelists today, then please feel free to reach out to them. I know that they're very welcoming of those professional connections. Excellent. So time has beaten us, panel. So let's hear some reflections on today's event. Your closing remarks, Stephan, if I may. I'll come to you first, and then we'll hear from Richard.
Yeah. Very short. It was, like I said in the beginning, pleasure, and I knew it would be a pleasure to be on episode 200. I learned again a lot from my other panelists, and I'm learning from questions that our audience is bringing in. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much indeed. Richard, your closing remarks for today, and then we'll hear from Jaap.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, it's a great experience today to hear all of these answers. I would, for those of you who are involved with a project already or wish to see some examples of great Agile projects in action, the Agile Conference Awards is happening in April next year. And I would encourage anybody who's got some interesting Agile projects to submit to taking part in those awards, maybe even look back at last year's awards for some inspirational projects. There's some phenomenally advanced projects going on, or programs as well, going on in the Agile world. And if you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking to talk about what you've actually done, the Consortium would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And look forward to that. And by the way, my past experience of this is that it's not the value of a project from the consortium. It's not measured in how many millions of euros, that was the budget. It's actually in the story that you're telling. So it's definitely worthwhile. Doesn't matter if you're small, medium, large. Put those stories in, okay? Have a go. It's a great thing to do. Thank you very much indeed, Richard. Jaap, and then Bina.
Thank you, Nick. It was great again to be here. As always, I learned a lot, even if with my age, I will want to keep learning. For me, it is important as a project manager to have fun, to enjoy what you're doing. And as long as you are going happily to your work and don't have sleepless nights before you go to work, then you are at the right spot. So it is important not to have a certain title, but to enjoy life and to enjoy your work and to keep learning. Thank you.
I completely agree with that. Thank you, Jaap. So much today to note. Bina, your closing remarks, please, and then we'll go to Adrian.
Well, I've really enjoyed this session. I've done some fantastic discussions. For any aspiring project managers out there, don't think you know everything, because you're not expected to know everything. You need other people, and keep learning. Keep curious. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
There's that curious word again. We love that. We love the curiosity and that sense of adventure, in all of us. Be adventurous. Fantastic. Adrian and then Etienne.
Yeah, it's always fantastic to bounce off such a great bunch of folks. So that's great today. And just to leave, I'm just going to reprise my pseudo equation from earlier, really for folk if they want to use it to help them grow as project managers, or indeed anything else. So the capability you're building, to me, is a combination of whatever talent you're born with, plus the knowledge you pick up along the way, the experience that you gain, and the judgment that you learn. There you go. Good luck, everybody. And thank you, panel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Adrian. We really appreciate you joining today. Etienne, final thoughts from yourself.
Yeah, again, a really great show, and fantastic learning from everyone. The answer to today's question, how to become a project manager, well, there's so many routes. Pick one, get started. Find a mentor, find a coach, and just get started.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back on screen Charlotte, who's been doing a great job, and the broader production team as well, in bringing in all of the commentary from the chat and sifting and choosing some great questions to be able to put to the panel. So your reflections on today's episode, Charlotte?
We have... shouldn't say this, but we have a bit of a side chat going on with the internal team, and we've been in awe of what's been said and asked today. It's just been amazing. One person that is not here that's been involved since pretty much day one is our colleague Suchika Jacob, and she does a lot in the background. So I wanted to say a big shout out to her. And Nick and Nigel, thank you for the original conception. It's just an amazing series. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much on behalf of the panel to all of our producers online. Pyne, great contribution from you in the chat today, Lona, as well, constantly, through there, joining in the discussion. We are a global community on Level Up, and we really do reflect, so much of the profession around the world, those who are early career, mid-career, and late career as well. So fantastic to have you all on board today. Great job. Welcome. Do watch out, rather, for your name in the credits if your question was read out. So we appreciate you submitting them. Now, looking forwards, over on our website, you can, of course, search for answers now to more than 2,100 questions. It's a free resource. It's all of the questions that have been asked in the 200 episodes of Level Up and more. From our various other events that we run around the world. It's very much free of charge, and it connects you with approaching 260 now, I think 270 experts from around the world. Don't forget that you may also listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. Just search for APMG International, level up your career, and you'll find us pretty easily. Coming up next, Monday, the 6th of November, 8 a.m. GMT, it is now. We look at how to build a strong business case. And if you're in the UK next week, then do consider that the BRM Community Week is underway. It's being hosted by the Business Relationship Management Institute, and I think it's down in the city of Southampton. Later on next week, on the Friday, we're going to attention to the future of change management. And that, of course, live streams at the regular time of 2 p.m. GMT on Friday afternoon here in the UK. Sign up, and of course, we will send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. So thanks very much, everybody. Congratulations on being part of our 200th episode of Level Up, and we look very much forward to working with you on the next 200 as well. Thank you. Bye-bye now.